the amount of people who are having to yet again, like, pick up, leave, not know what they're going to be coming back to, just sheer panic and being scared, like the mental health impacts of the realness of it is probably so salient for people.
The mental health impacts of the environmental change are massive and global and unending.
Welcome to the EasySpeak Speakeasy.
You've unlocked the door to unfiltered mental health and wellness conversations.
We're here at the EasySpeak.
Ow!
Season 3, episode 2.
Season 2, episode 3 is what you really meant to say. Just,
starting off real strong today. Real strong.
Listen.
Oh my God.
Does it really matter? Who knows? No, it doesn't. At the end of the day, we're here to have these conversations.
That's right. That's right. We are here today.
We showed up. Call it whatever number you want.
Okay. Call it what you want. We have some drinks, though. That'll help, I think. Situation that always helps. What are we calling this one? Do we know?
A nice little bourbon situation. I was thinking of calling it like an apple crisp.
We'll
see. We'll see if I stick with that by the time the sip comes out.
Yeah.
But it's essentially like some bourbon, apple cider, a little bit of maple syrup, a dash.
Which I was shocked by.
I'm not a maple syrup fan.
You can't even stand the smell of maple syrup. When I saw that drink list, the ingredient list, I was like, wow, Paris really changed her. So, like, she went to Paris, came back drinking maple syrup.
No, I was like, drop. And what else is up in here? A little sprinkle of nutmeg.
Oh, nice.
And cinnamon sugar rim, which I feel like makes everything nice. Gives a little bit of sweetness.
Yeah.
And some cinnamon sticks are up in there.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. It's a nice little welcome into fall, but not all the way in, because I'm not ready to do it, even though it's officially fall.
Those are all pretty fall ingredients, I gotta say. There's not one summer ingredient in that list.
There's ice in it.
Yeah, there you go. It's cold. Yeah. And that recipe can easily be made into a delicious mocktail. Just remove the bourbon and it's still delicious to mix all those other things together.
Totally. Yeah, make it fancy. Instead of just throwing some apple cider in a glass, you can put a little rim
tray.
Yep. And some extra little spices. And you can even, if you want to remove the ice and go really more towards the fall, you could heat it up.
Oh, yeah, true that. I've never done that with apple cider.
That's one of my favorite things about apple cider.
Warming it up.
That you can do it either way.
Yeah. I don't know about
I love myself a warm alcoholic beverage.
Me too. I do like a warm alcoholic beverage.
It hits the soul.
It does.
On a different level.
Oh, it just warms you right up. Oh, it's like a hug.
Right up.
Yeah. Right up. It is like a hug. Which is a wonderful segue into our first topic of discussion today, because as much as we are hanging on to summer, clenching, I still have in my trunk all of my summer stuff, shovels and nets and sunscreen But alas, it is October.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but alas, in many parts of the country, it is still over 100 degrees.
which is wild. Is that normal? Okay, so you're in California
Mm-hmm.
and it's still very hot there. Is it typically?
101 here.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it's supposed to be, or it's like everyone's walking around like, what?
No, everyone's walking around like, okay.
Yeah.
I think especially for California, it's like this is the time of the year that the rain starts. And
Yeah.
very much needed. This is also the fire season, and we're already seeing so many fires. So
Oh no.
the
Scary.
the heat is not helpful.
Yeah. Not helpful. Even though we are creatures that love the heat, we also want
Yes.
safety for our
Yes.
planet.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And I want all of these beautiful plants and crops and all of the gorgeous greenery to continue to live, as well as all of these people's properties and all of that.
Yeah. It's really crazy to think about all of the ways that climate change is manifesting in our everyday lives. Like you all are dealing with extreme heat when it's supposed to be a rainy season over there on the West Coast, and then folks on the East Coast here in the South are bracing themselves for yet another hurricane in the span of 2 weeks. Like, literally, people are just returning back to their homes, trying to clean up. The devastation is real. I think over 200 people died, and there's still so many people unaccounted for with Hurricane Helene. And now, as of today, Hurricane Milton just strengthened to be a Category 5 hurricane, which Helene was a Category 4. So even stronger than the last one. And it's caused the largest evacuation in hurricane history. And it is just wild to think about that. Like, the amount of people who are having to yet again, like, pick up, leave, not know what they're going to be coming back to, just sheer panic and being scared. Like, the mental health impacts of the realness of it is probably so salient for people.
The mental health impacts of the environmental change are massive and global and unending. You know, I think it's everything from the things that you just mentioned to grief of the loss of loved ones or land, homes, items, things that people work their whole lives for, or sentimental things. I mean, I was watching interviews from Helene, and, people were talking about, like, their great grandmother's house that they've been like living in for their whole life, and the generations before did, and how everybody like made it their business to keep the property alive because of how hard their great grandmother worked to be able to get this property, And then it's like this hurricane came through and picked it up and moved it 3 roads over.
Crazy.
And so, and just now I feel like what we're starting to see in some places that have been having maybe the earlier impacts of the climate change, but now places that it's continuously occurring over and over again, like places like Florida, they've been having hurricanes for a long time, so they're somewhat used to them.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing the hurricanes like shift towards the west now. Like you usually see a hurricane like come up through Florida and then come up the east coastline, stick on the water.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's gone. Yeah.
Right. And so I was watching an interview on the news. I hope I can remember this correctly. But the environmentalist was talking about, they call it a brown hurricane, a brown storm. I might need to fact check this and put it in the show notes. But essentially what it means is like the air from the oceans is coming in and not cycling through the land and moving along the way that it used to. And so hurricane tracks, instead of sticking on water to pick up their momentum the way that they used to, they're now shifting to the left, which is why we're seeing over like Nashville into like New Mexico and these other places, because there's now this like humidity and like
in the
air that's happening, that is like the storm itself is just looking for a way to find that energy source.
Yeah.
And now it's in the air in places where it wasn't before.
Yeah. The water molecules, I mean, everything is energy, and the water molecules stick to each other, right? So they're always looking for other, that's how, like, the more water, the more. So I looked it up. It's the brown ocean effect.
Thank you. The brown ocean effect. Yes.
Yeah. So when a tropical storm or cyclone maintains or even intensifies in strength as it moves inland. Yeah. And it just makes me think of when we were in San Diego this past, when was it? We were in San Diego last January.
Yeah.
And we were hearing for the first time the meteorologist referred to an atmospheric river, right? Yeah. We were like, what?
We were like, okay.
We were like, okay, but like that is prime.
Is this a time to manifest?
We're like, what's the moon doing? What's the stars doing? And how does that play into this river? And yeah, so that must be like a hurricane's dream, right? To like encounter an atmospheric river over some land, and just like, and that makes a lot of sense. You know, in the last couple of years here in New England, we've referred to the fact that it felt humid even though it was cold. Remember, like, we've had conversations where we're like, weird. It's humid, but like it's also like cold. Like that's not, that usually isn't a thing that happens, you know?
It was like that a couple of days last week. I was like, I have no idea what clothes I'm supposed to have on.
Yeah. It feels humid, but then it's chilly. It's very weird. Yeah.
But it was like weird. If I put on a layer, it was like sticking to me.
Yeah.
I was cold.
Right.
I was like, just let me just find the nearest bar stool.
Yeah.
It'll be ridiculously air conditioned, and I'll know that I should put on a jacket and a scarf.
True. The restaurants always just air on the side of frigid. They're like, they're just like, you know, turn it up. People will have layers. It's New England. Oh my gosh. But yeah, those poor people down and you know, in North Carolina specifically, it was hit so hard. And I feel like you never hear that about the Carolinas. Like, it's always Florida, like you said, that gets hit. But like it picked up in intensity as it went through, and just like complete devastation. So my heart goes out to all those people, because that is, I can't even imagine, like, where do you even start to like try to figure out how to rebuild your life? Like, if you don't have family or a natural support system or a place to go, like, what are people doing? That's rough.
I think that's why many people sort of end up on the news as being the people who like didn't leave in the evacuation order. You know, I think sometimes it's just like, I'm going to write it out. Like, this is all that I have in this world. Like, I'm going to stay here and try to do everything that I can to protect it. Yeah. But I also think like there are a lot of people that have extremely small families or
networks.
You know, they're not that connected, or they may not have the money, like if there's an evacuation order, to just be able to get on a train or get on a bus or an airplane and just fly somewhere out of the danger zone for a few days and then come back and figure out what happened. Like, that's not feasible for everyone. And like we're seeing with Helene, a lot of people can't even get back. The roads are washed out. There's
Bridges.
Helicopters that are coming in to drop off like water and diapers to people. It's just, so, you know, that kind of like unending, like, I don't even know when I would be able to come back to my home. I can only imagine what that feels like, especially I think for certain types of groups of people, right? Like, I can imagine people who have owned their home forever and are in retirement or older, or even newer couples or newer homeowners, may not be couples, who are like, I just put absolutely every single penny that I have, and we're eating ramen noodles. So like, make this happen, like, I'm gonna stay here and protect like every window that I can, or do what I can for my property and in my future, and instead of just like letting what happens and not doing anything about it. It's hard to relinquish control.
Yeah, it is. That is a mental game in and of itself. Is like, we as humans really put ourselves up on a pedestal in terms of like our ability to control our own fate, and Mother Nature certainly humbles us every step of the way, and it's like, you can't, at a certain point, there's nothing you can do. If it's 100-mile-an-hour winds or whatever it was, I don't even know how fast the winds were with Helene, but it's not, there's no like force of human nature that's gonna meet that and withstand it, It's so tough. But like you said, thinking about like certain groups of people, I think when this kind of thing happens, it always brings up for me historically marginalized groups and how those people are faring in this, right? Like, in order to get FEMA funds or assistance and things, you have to have a certain like savvy, you need to know certain things, know where to go to look for help, know how to advocate for yourself, know how to ask for things. And I think a lot of people are probably left without the ability to really make formative decisions about their future at this point in time because language barrier or citizenship status. We know that in Florida, there's a huge Haitian population. There's, a lot of immigrants and people who don't speak the language. And so I'm just thinking about those folks too, like if you were already living in a shelter situation, or if you were already living in a crowded apartment or a crowded home, and now that is no longer, like, how are those people faring, And I'm sure there are organizations that are dedicated to helping those folks, but I definitely have been thinking about them, the folks that don't have the means to be able to just pick up and like rebuild somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. Who are just like, all right, well, we have X amount of dollars set to the side while we wait for this insurance money to come in, and or all of your ties. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that bring it back to mental health. This is a developing topic, and I think it's something that definitely younger generations are talking about and are more vocal about what is happening with the environment and climate change and global warming and all of the different impacts that it has. I think that it's unfortunate that everyone is not on the same page about this. Like, the fact that there's debate is interesting.
Yeah.
But I think, like, when it comes to mental health, everyone needs to, as we always talk about, we all need a technique, a set of skills, a self-care toolbox, a self-care plan, like all of the types of ways that you can think about what you can do to calm yourself in the state of an emergency or the state of an unlikely situation that happens to ground yourself in the moment and try to stay very present in the moment that you're in, I think is the best thing that you can do, because you never know, right? Like when you're facing that kind of in a weather event or unpredictable weather forecast, you do have to kind of let go, right? And I think a lot of people put trust in their faith, or may have other types of things that they believe in, whether it's manifesting or the universe or whatever it is that you call your higher spiritual being, which I think most people have. But I think finding a way to be able to just be in the moment and not get yourself all the way down the road on something, because that's, I think, the thing, right? Like I always tell people who are scared to have like a procedure, I'm like, all the time you're waiting to get this procedure done. You're just living in a state of anxiety. And once you actually get it done, you're going to wake up and be like, whoa, why didn't I do that 5 years ago?
Yeah. It's true. Yeah. I mean, anxiety feeds off of that uncertainty, the unknown, right? Like that's anxiety fuel, So like you said, the biggest thing that we can do is try to stay in the moment, but also there's that, that acceptance of, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to wish for the best, and I'm going to do everything that's in my power and my control and not worry about the rest, But easier said than done, but definitely.
Again, I think this is one of the things that we always talk about, is that it takes practice. Like we talked about it in one of our last episodes with Sam about breath work, right? And it's like when you're suddenly in the middle of a crisis, all of a sudden deciding you're going to try to practice how to do breathing is not the time to expect great results, right? So the more you can practice trying to be in the present moment, and like when you feel anxiety coming on, thinking about what is it right now that's causing me this level of anxiety, and how much of it can I actually control, right? Like, I think that's a really important thing to think about, is the ongoing practice of caring for yourself and paying attention to your internal feelings.
Yeah.
And there's a wonderful reverend who Diana, Michael Beckwith, who we have followed for quite some time. He's in one of our favorite movies, The Secret.
Yes.
But he has an acronym for the word help, which I love. And I think about this all the time when I'm feeling like I need some bigger thing, person, being, God, to help me.
Yeah.
And his acronym for help is Hello, Eternal Loving Presence. And so in the way that he utilizes that is in the moments where you feel really overwhelmed and you just want to say help, you need help, and you're identifying that if you can just kind of open yourself to saying hello to a loving eternal presence that's around you, however it is that you identify that you're welcoming that presence in your life to help you and to stabilize you and to be with you in that time.
Yeah, I love that. That's really nice. I love the like sense of control that you can get from that. It's like taking back control and saying, this is the energy that I want around me right now, and I welcome it, and I'm open to it, and I'm ready to be a conduit for it, and to follow its guidance. That is so powerful. That's so powerful, because when we're feeling anxious and worried and scared, that's closed off energy. That's like us being in ourselves, like just shutting out the rest of the world in our minds, just, worst case scenario. But when we can open up, we can kind of dispel some of that energy, but also invite some more positive vibes. More positive vibes. So
you can never go wrong with Dr. Michael Beckwith.
It's true.
Ever heard of him? Check him out on Instagram or Facebook or Google him, because he is full of positivity.
Yeah, he's
I always feel better after hearing him.
So enlightening. So enlightening. It's the way that he phrases things, the perspective shifting that he's able to do, very simple but very effective.
That's what I need.
Yeah.
It's like my bourbon, straight up.
Simple and effective. Is there like a little foamy situation at the top?
No, it's just my ice.
Oh, I was going to say it looks foamy. I'm having FOMO of the foamy.
Speaking of, we haven't done an egg white drink in a while.
It's true. We need something frothy.
Yeah.
Just serve some frothy up. Maybe next time. So anyway, just to wrap that up, we're thinking of you all down in Florida and hope that everything works out okay. And, unfortunately, this is a topic that I'm sure we'll have to keep talking about here at the EasySpeak, because climate change is real and the effects of it are real. And, every year I'm like wondering what it's going to be like to have winter here in New England. It used to be pretty predictable, but here we are in October and it's still warm. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
in shorts and dresses the whole time I was there.
Yeah. Weird. So anyway.
I mean, I did a lot of manifestation in that area. So
I know. You started manifesting that it doesn't snow here years ago. And we got no snow last year. And I was like, she's not even here anymore.
You're welcome.
I want snow.
Go visit the snow.
This time.
Do you want to shovel snow?
I never shovel snow. I never did. I never had to.
Listen, a lot of people around you do have to shovel snow. Go visit the snow. Go shimmy, shoop, ski your ass down.
Shimmy, shoop, ski.
And then pack your car up and drive back to your driveway that has no snow in it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's what I'm going to have to do. We'll see. We'll see what happens this winter.
Be a little ski lodge snow bunny.
Oh my gosh. I do love a good ski lodge sitting by the fire. Oh. The nice book, hot tubs.
I knew the word hot tubs was about to come out of your mouth.
It's literally the first thing I thought of, but I delayed it. I'm like, let me sound a little classy and say I'm going to read a book by the fire first. Oh my gosh. All right. So we've got that going on. But the other thing that is really top of mind for me these days is the effects of food on our mental health. Now, I really think it would be great for us to get an expert in here to talk about this. But there's been a lot of research that has shown that certain things that are in food, certain ingredients are not great for our mental health. And, we've had a lot of discussions here at the EasySpeak and in the mental health space in general about how rates of mental health challenges are just on the rise, and they continue to be on the rise in our youth, but also in our adult populations. And, there's a lot of speculation as to what is contributing to that. With youth, the biggest things that come up are social media. I was listening to a comedian the other day. They were like, remember back in the days in the 90s and the 80s, you'd walk into third grade and it looked like a damn VA hospital because everyone was in casts and you got a leg up, you got an arm broken because kids were outside playing. And he's like, now all the injuries are mental. It's you don't see them, there aren't a lot of kids in casts, but there's a lot of kids on IEPs and all this other stuff. And
very, very true. That was very astute.
Yes.
Observation.
You could always leave it up to a comedian to really highlight what the heck is going on.
Totally. Also, everybody's thumbs are like their thumb muscles are very, very strong.
The thumb muscles are strong, and the necks all have humps on them.
Exactly. Nobody wants to engage in a thumb war these days.
Oh no. It has been a long time since I've thumb warred with somebody.
I'll tell you who I'm not going to get into a thumb war with. Anybody under the age of 14.
Yeah,
no. That'll be a no.
Oh, thank you.
I'll do a thumb war with my mom or uncle or somebody my age, but anybody young, basically anyone younger than me, I'm not doing it.
Just spare yourself the embarrassment.
I have a friend that calls all young people, whenever he like sees them texting or playing video games, he calls them thunder thumbs.
Thunder thumbs. That's so funny. It's so funny.
That's how he gets their attention when they're all wrapped up in whatever they're doing. He'll go,
"Hey, thunder thumbs.
Hey, yo, thunder thumbs."
I love it. Oh, I remember back in my 20s when I used to be thunder thumbs when a man used to piss me off. We grew out of that era, though. We don't do that anymore.
Exactly. Now we're like block, delete.
Yeah, block, delete.
You don't even need a thumb for that. You just index finger, block, delete.
Yeah.
Block, delete, and where my car keys.
Where my keys at? Because we outside.
I'm going out.
But there's all these things that are attributed to the rise in mental health challenges, but one of the things that I don't think is talked about a lot or often enough is how we eat in this country, and the stuff that's in our food, and at the risk of sounding like a super almond crunchy person, which I'm not. Like, I was literally just eating spicy dill pickle flavored chips. Like, I'm not, but also like, I think it's really interesting because in the state of California, they just passed a bill called the California School Food Safety Act, that bans certain foods or beverages that have red dye number 40, yellow dyes number 5 and 6, blue dyes number 1 and 2, green dye number 3, and some other things. So, like, from school lunches. So no more Cheetos at school, no more Doritos, no more Skittles, no more M&Ms, no more Starbursts, no more Gatorade, no more Mountain Dew, no more Captain Crunch, Ruffles, or anything Takis. And I'm sure the list goes on, because these foods have been linked to behavioral issues in children. And I think that is huge. Like, yeah. A lot of moms, especially moms.
And innovation.
Yeah, I know. It's just amazing. Like, for that to go through the lengthy legal process to actually become a law, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot of advocacy. It takes a lot of somebody championing something for it to get to that level. But I think, like, a lot of moms I know who are raising or have raised children, especially on the autism spectrum, have told me that, like, when they changed their child's diet, they noticed a significant change in their behavior, but that's always been anecdotal to me, right? Like, you don't hear that often, but clearly it's a real thing, and it's making me really think hard about, like, what I feed my own kids, but then also, like, if that's the case, like, what food is safe, like, how would we then go back to a place in time when food was actually safe and not contributing to a slew of health problems, including mental health problems?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to everybody's mama, Michelle Obama, for all of the work that she did and Zaddy Barack was in the office
Yes.
around nutrition in schools and how much negative press she got for trying to feed children healthy food.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
This was shocking to me then and is still shocking to me now. Like, why would you not want somebody championing what?
Championing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The foods that our kids are eating.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you something. As somebody who's raising a now adult who has a number of challenges, that food is highly impactful on these challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at 19 and now living with supports on his own, but his food is very much brought to him by the programs, right? Still fall underneath school systems. I'm like, is everybody here okay?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Like, it is shocking. And I've been doing things with his diet for years because through the other moms that I met a lot of mothers who especially had kids with autism who were doing things related to their diet. And so I learned a lot of things. And so even though they like offered breakfast at school and that sort of thing, I started making him steel cut oatmeal in the morning with fresh blueberries and fruits and like superfoods in it and all of those kinds of things that he could eat on the way to school that would like fill him up.
Yeah.
And was not processed, was made from home, like a hearty, nutritious breakfast. And then like when he would get home at night, we would have healthy dinner at night. And my kids grew up with like fruits and vegetables as snacks.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of that because for the most part, as they have come into a young adulthood, they're still the kind that, like, if I laid out a bunch of things on the counter, they'll eat through the fruits and vegetables before they get to, like, the crappy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's an intentional decision that you have to make.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they say, like, with anybody who's, looking to lose weight or be more healthy, like, you win this 90% of this battle at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you can shop the perimeter and you can stay out of the processed foods and all of those things, like, you're going to be so much better off. Like, you got to go in there. Don't be hungry.
Yep. Don't be hungry.
What you're going to get and then get up out of there. Right.
Yep.
And so like that, all of those strategies work. But I remember when COVID hit and in our school district, they were offering lunches for all of the students that you could drive through and like pick up lunches every day, like breakfast and lunch together at different times of.
Oh, I remember that.
At lunch. You remember this?
Yes. Yeah.
And so my son would love to like go. It was something to do at the time, right? Like we're
all out of the house.
Down. You couldn't do anything. And so we would go to get lunch, and what we came back with, like, it actually created a bigger problem for me because I was like, we're not going to get that anymore.
Yeah.
I could not believe what was coming in.
What was it? I don't even remember.
Pop-Tarts. Like, the breakfast was like Pop-Tarts, some kind of a like whole milk situation.
Yeah.
No, there was no fruits. There were no vegetables. If there were fruits, they were like the fruit cups.
The cups with the
in
syrup.
Plastic, in syrup.
Yeah.
And the lunches were just like overly processed, whatever it was.
Yeah, deli meats and yeah.
And it's just like, I think in certain places, especially in places where people are typically underserved in a number of different areas, there's not a lot of education around these things.
It's true.
So like we need to work together to be the voices to say, you shouldn't feed your kids deli meat because there's 100% proof that they are cancer causing. Google it.
Yeah.
Right? It's way better to roast a chicken, roast a turkey, whatever, in the beginning of the week
and shred it all up.
And make sandwiches at home.
Yep.
Because the processing, like if something is getting so hyper processed, you should not be eating it.
Yeah.
You should not be giving it to your kids. And I'm also when I hear like red dye number 40, I'm like, you can just X me out for red dye number 1 through whatever that number ends at.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do we need dye? Like, why? What's the point?
When an apple grows, it's red on the outside.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
If you're feeding me something that did not come red, I don't want you to alter it to be that color.
Right.
And that goes for green, blue, yellow, and whatever else.
Yep. It's to make it look more appealing. You know, there's like this whole thing with food science and how to make things look appetizing and, you know, how to make people buy more of it, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you know, back, the cigarette moguls, when they saw that cigarettes were losing because of all of the mandates that were happening after it was like, hey, cigarettes actually aren't good for you.
Yeah.
Don't smoke them in the office anymore.
Yeah.
They started buying into the food industry. And so if you do any research about what is happening with our food in America and you really dig deep enough, almost every major food brand is owned by an organization, company, corporation that is linked to the tobacco industry back in the day.
Crazy. Wild.
And their whole gag is getting people addicted.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they take all the things that we were eating that were nutritious and they loaded them up with sugar, which is hugely addictive.
Yep.
And here we are.
Yep.
40 years later, people dying over some Apple Jacks.
I know. I saw a thing. It was like a meme online, and I wish I could pull it up. But it was like, sugar in the brain is called ADHD. Sugar in the blood is called diabetes. Sugar in your teeth is called cavities. You know, like it just like went through like all of the different things. And I was like, oh my God, like it's so bad for you. It's so bad. And it's true. Like I've gone through phases in my life where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to eat strictly paleo diet, you know, so that's going to no processed sugars, nothing. And then when I don't crave anything. Like when I'm in the thick of that, I crave nothing. But if I go somewhere and somebody offers me a cookie and I happen to take it, the next day I'm like, oh, that cookie was really good. Like I would love a cookie or a cupcake, you know, and you have to like fight off that urge again. You know, like get yourself back to a place where you're not craving it or wanting it, you know. It's really crazy to think about.
And the bigger problem is that it's so much cheaper to gain access to food that is overly processed, right? Like we're now in the ass backwards world of in order for me to do something that's great for my kids' behavioral health by changing their nutrition, I'm going to now have to pay double or triple the price to not have those chemicals, pesticides, or added sugars be in their food.
Yeah. I have a one of my friends posted something today. She was at Whole Foods and they had a sign that said basically like, none of that crap is here. Like we don't carry any foods, but like Whole Foods is also called whole paycheck. Like you can't, you can't go there and shop for your entire fridge at Whole Foods and not spend, $300-400, It's really wild, which, I think about this and I'm immediately like, oh, we just need to get to a place where we're self-sustaining, like my family, I'm like, we need a farm, we need our own chickens, we need to grow our own food, like I just aspire to that one day, because who wants to live in a world where like being healthy costs more than it is to be sick? Like,
right.
Well, yeah. It costs more to be sick, which is the kicker of it,
mm-hmm.
but
not immediately.
Not day
to day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And our kids are suffering for it, right? Like they're feeling out of control. They are feeling all of the effects of addiction.
Yeah.
Right? It's just something that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
And so while, like you said, it would be great to have a nutritionist come on, and I agree, I think that there's enough information out there at this point that as parents and as communities, like we can work together to fix some of these problems. Like I love the idea of community gardens.
Yeah.
People who come together to contribute to gardens, to work the gardens, and then in the end, like reap the abundance of the gardens, right? Mm-hmm. And can then feed their families from the crops that are grown or the different things. It's much cheaper to go and buy a bunch of seeds and spend some time. And listen, these are all things that are so good for your mental health. Yes. Getting your fingers and your hands in the dirt.
Yes.
And like working outside in the fresh air and growing things, and there's an absolute like endorphin high that happens when you like see something that you planted like actually grow into a cantaloupe. It's like, holy crap, like I grew a cantaloupe.
Yeah. And it's proven that, literally just like touching dirt for like several minutes a day increases the neurotransmitter serotonin, which is our happy hormone, essentially. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we know that it's true on multiple levels, that it's good for you.
Yeah. And, but it takes, I think, we're huge advocates of parent voice and youth voice. And I think especially in schools, public schools mostly, because I feel like in private and independent schools, a lot of families tend to send their kids with their own lunches.
Yeah.
Or there's a different level of what's being served because of the nature of the funding, private pay, all of that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But in public schools, like I think this is definitely an issue that is going to be changed by the like groundwork and grassroots of parents and kids saying like, we're not going to accept this like 50% bruised apple and whole cow milk and non-organic cow milk and Apple Jacks and a Pop-Tart as a breakfast. Like when I was just in France, this was an amazing moment when I was in France, which, by the way, anything that you find in France has easily half the ingredients. Like I walked into a McDonald's in France just to see the difference.
Yeah.
Wow. You could think it was a different chain.
Yeah. It's like an actual restaurant.
It's like an actual restaurant. The calories of everything are on everything. The ingredient list is there. It's like, it's unbelievable. If you Google like what's in a Big Mac in Paris, France versus what's in a Big Mac in the United States, you'll fall off your chair.
Oh my God.
So they can still do it.
Yeah. It's still possible. Yeah.
Still possible, just less addictive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But like it's when I was in a grocery store I was looking for yogurt, and in my way looking for yogurt, I saw like some kids yogurt things that like popped out to me because, they're all bright and colorful or whatever.
Yeah.
And when I went over to the refrigerated case, it was the dessert section.
Yogurts or dessert. Yeah.
All of the kids' yogurts were in the dessert section.
Yeah.
They were not in the yogurt section like they are here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that made me kind of walk around and take a look at like the other things that were in the grocery store and where things were, how they were placed, how they were labeled were entirely different.
Wow.
Like a Go-Gurt situation, that is 100% a dessert. It's all sugar. There's no nutritional value in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you think it is because it's labeled yogurt, but it's like, no, it's not. I know. I don't get my kids. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's going to take all of us to say, like, this is not acceptable and to push on schools that will then push on districts and up the chain, right, to the state government, because it's a larger problem, right? And the end of the day, we know all roads lead to money.
Yes.
And it's the dollars that drive these decisions, right?
Yeah.
Like the schools probably need double the money that they're getting to provide nutritional school lunches.
Yep.
And if that's problematic for the budget lines, then we should take a better look at how we're pricing all food.
It's true. I mean, I don't know why kids, there can't be schools that are farming and making their own food there. Like, how amazing would that be to, like schools have tons of space. A lot of schools have tons of space that goes unused. They're often, struggling for money. It's like, why wouldn't you just like have the kids become farmers? Grow their own food.
It's red tape.
I know.
When it comes to the state and public schools, that comes down to red tape, right?
Yeah. But it's such a good idea, though. It's like
it's such a great idea. But the problem is that there's so much like fear-based decisions, right? Which we know are never going to be good. But people make fear-based decisions because instead of them thinking this is going to be great for 99% of the students and families, right? Yeah. Maybe there's going to be 1% where a kid grows something and has an allergic reaction or like something might happen. And so like that now becomes the driver. And it's like you can't do things that way. That's not the way to create great, smart, healthy environments for kids that are good for them physically, mentally, emotionally. Yeah. As students, like our students aren't learning well when their brain, like you said, sugar of the brain is ADHD. So how well are our kids, our future, learning and developing if their brains are being fueled by processed cane sugar?
Yeah, it's so terrible. It is. Well,
but I know this is a big topic, and we kind of went big. I went big, of course, because I always do. But the point is, you can start to make small changes, right? Yeah. Everybody can start making a small change. Thinking about maybe like even just sometimes of the year, if you live in a place where there's like winters, like can you plant a tomato plant? Even if you live in an apartment, you can grow a fair amount of things inside, or vertically. Have a deck or a window box. Like you can tomatoes grow like nobody's business.
Yeah. There's a lot of like vertical systems too. Like people tend to think it takes a lot of space, but there are lots of different configurations for how to grow stuff in a small space.
And I think just starting to make small swaps, one thing at a time, so it's not like all of a sudden now I can't afford anything.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, just start with one thing. Like, I'm no longer going to buy this thing. I'm going to swap it out for this thing.
Right.
And then the great thing about that is you can start to have conversations as a family.
Yes.
And maybe you yourself, depending on how old your kids are, what your situation is, may not be able to make all of the changes, but having those conversations together as a family about being healthy and being mindful and thinking about the implications of what we're doing with our nutrition, you can set your kids up for a place where, as they're learning and thinking about what they're going to do in the world and how much money they want to make and what things are important to them, that this can become something that's in the forefront of their mind.
Yep.
So that they can say, it's going to be important to me that I have access to the most nutritious foods that I can get. And so therefore I'm going to make X, Y, and Z decision as I move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're of course not saying like kids are going to want a piece of candy from every now and again, right? Like treats are treats, and they're always have a place in our diet, but we shouldn't be mostly eating these things that are high in sugar or high fructose corn syrup, which is, I hate. Anytime I see that as an ingredient, I'm like, back on the shelf. So
there's always going to be a place in my life for a brownie sundae.
Oreos. Yep, brownie sundae, Oreos.
I don't know what would have to happen for there not to be a place for a brownie sundae in my life.
Yeah, I know a package of Oreos hates to see me coming. I know that. I know that. So I can't even talk, but that I don't buy them. I always have them at somebody else's house because I know that if I have them, I will eat them all
in one sitting. And then be like, why'd I do that to myself?
I feel gross. I have a headache for 5 days straight.
Yeah. It's so good in the moment. That's that addiction. That's that addiction.
It is. It takes I don't know how they're so good. They're so good.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, it's been a lovely discussion. If you are finding yourself making any choices that are different or any changes to your food routine, if you're a mama like me that packs school lunches every week and you're trying to figure out the best thing, quick ideas, things that are healthy snacks, please hit us up. We're in this together. I have tons of little knickknacks and things that I like to prepare ahead of time to make sure that my kids' lunches are healthy. It's not the easiest. It does take some time, but it is totally worth it. So, and
we have a great new way for you to get in touch with us.
Yes.
So we now have an account with SpeakPipe. So if you want to leave us a voice message, you can be anonymous or you can say your name and you can record a message to us with questions, comments, feedback, ideas, anything really. We would love to hear from you and potentially play your voicemail back on the show and have a conversation about it, or maybe even a whole podcast about it, because we know that there's lots and lots of topics out there that we are likely not getting to. So you can get to that at speakpipe.com/EasySpeakOnAir. And we'll also have the link to it in our show notes.
Yes. Can't wait to hear from you guys. And that's going to do it for today's show, I think. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and review. And tell a friend to tell a friend.
And
we'll see you next time at the Speakeasy.
Yeah. And stick around for our meditation minute.
Bye.
Bye.